Welcome to the Pancake Parlay, episode 107. I'm your host, The Don, and I'm here with Chatters. How are you today?
I'm good, Don. How are you?
I'm good. We've got some reviews. We're gonna talk about some TV shows, and yeah, we're just gonna jump in straight into the news because that's basically what we do. So yeah, just start off our Chatters. What do we got for news?
Well, apparently, Netflix kind of came out with a company statement recently talking about how, just to kind of keep everybody's mind at ease, that Netflix won't be running out of content in 2020. Apparently, that's something that might have been a concern for people, which kind of makes sense because because of coronavirus, which luckily enough we're allowed to say now on YouTube. People are stuck at home, and you're probably going through a bunch of your TV shows and movies and are running out of things. But Netflix have said that they're coming up with new things and people shouldn't have to worry, which is a surprise. Like I wasn't that concerned, but then again, like I'm not like the biggest user of Netflix per se, but for example, I've been using it a lot to watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That's been like the main thing that I've been watching recently. I think I was like season 2 last week. I'm on season 5 now, so it's yeah, I'm blasting through it.
That's a solid pace.
Yeah, I'm blasting through it. It's a good show. What can I say? But yeah, like again, there's new stuff always coming out, and the thing with all these online platforms is that syndication changes all the time. So you'll have shows come in and come out, and that kind of gets people coming back to a streaming service or leaving it. Like you have all the stuff that's happening on HBO and HBO Max and the DC Universe show where they're having certain shows available, and then maybe next month it kind of rotates out, and so that kind of motivates people to either come in or come out. Because otherwise it's really weird because you think that, oh well, if you own all this property, why don't you have it all out there for people to watch it? Like it does seem kind of anti-consumer in that way, but I think that's supposed to be the technique that they do to get people to come back or come in. For example, like a lot of big companies such as HBO bought, I think, the license to Friends and Big Bang Theory and a bunch of other shows for syndication, but that's not always going to be on those channels. It's going to leave after like X amount of years after they get their run through.
But still,
But
it is a big deal for them to kind of
oh
have
yeah,
those
definitely.
long things because people do just like, oh yeah, especially for long lasting shows. Um,
Mm.
yeah, they're just like, oh, you have that weird comfort of just being like, you know what, I just want to watch an episode of something or just put it in the background, and you just always have it there, you know.
Yeah, but for me, I'm always thinking of like something like, okay, Disney, they own Marvel. They're gonna always, presumably have uh the X-Men animated series on. But chances are they'll probably rotate that out at some stage, just for whatever reason, just to give it that limited time. Like, ooh, you better watch it while it's still on our platform, even though why would it disappear in the first place? Again, it's this kind of sense of it's almost like trying to treat it like a limited resource, even though it isn't, in order to inflate the perception in the eyes of the consumer. But hey, that's just hey, it's a tactic that's been working, so why change it? Again, it all comes down to consumer choices when it comes to these things. But in terms of Netflix's new arsenal of TV shows, one of the new shows that are actually coming across or moving across from YouTube to Netflix is Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
I still haven't I haven't watched the series yet, but now that it will, because I never had YouTube Red or whatever it was, and then I know it was free. I think the
You
first
had
season or
you had a
something
week
around.
trial for it, and I do know that
Yeah.
for Cobra Kai they were just like, hey, you can watch like the 2 to 3 episodes free to kind of get you hooked.
Mhm.
And that's the thing. It's like as I mentioned before, big Cobra Kai fan. I think that was like my
Mhm.
TV show of the year in like
Yes.
2 years ago. Um,
Hmm. I do
really good,
remember that.
yeah, really good spiritual successor, and it's really good that it's an extension of something, but without crapping out on the old one. And that you don't really see that many of that these days. You see that with
Hmm.
Star Wars or Jurassic Park. Cobra Kai really does take itself into like it's still kind of the same feeling, and we're not going to try to ruin these characters that you know I guess once loved.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
yeah, obviously, Cobra Kai at least it at least is getting a like apparently season 3 was already filmed. Um, and you know, essentially, you know, I'm assuming the YouTube branch of like making premium scripted content is pretty much gone out the window. Like, I'm pretty sure no one really watched any of the stuff. I do know that Cobra Kai was one of them. I've been meaning to watch a YouTube series called Wayne. Apparently, that was also pretty good. So maybe that's moving to other channels as well. So
Okay.
I purely think it's not a Cobra Kai thing. I think it's just YouTube being like, yeah,
Oh,
this is not profitable. This is not happening. You know?
well, yeah. I mean, it could be multiple things. It could also be that it's. I mean, and also it's an upgrade because who the fuck has YouTube Red, right? Like no, like literally no one.
Mm,
Although, hey, look, if you have YouTube Red, feel free to subscribe to us if you have it. No, but like in all seriousness, so like like a minority of people, um, use the YouTube Red function or the YouTube like member function, and it's supposed to be like an alternative way to kind of get premium content on YouTube. YouTube trying to get onto that streaming service kind of money, but it just haven't been able to land any big creators or makers in any big respect. And I think that's obviously is what's hurting it, and it is why they're moving away from trying to create their own kind of content, and rather trying to focus on their own kind of big names and brands. Like, for example, they recently signed up PewDiePie to do live streaming on their platform. And that's obviously driving a lot of people to come watch his streams and therefore watch stuff on YouTube as well. And with Cobra Kai's move to Netflix, it's just makes perfect sense because it's going to make it easier for people to watch the first two seasons. Like I said, I didn't watch it. I never took the opportunity to watch it in that first week, not because I wasn't interested. I was interested, but just life happens. And now with the third season coming out on Netflix along with season 1 and 2, just makes it easier to just binge 30 episodes of the show, like, or
yeah.
is it 10 episodes?
Yeah, they're 10 episodes each, and I think
Yeah,
each one is like half an hour, so they are very
yeah, exactly.
digestible. And yeah, I'd say once again, good quality TV. And it's good that at least it will now have that broader audience. For people to actually at least watch it. So instead of being like, "Oh, you gotta watch this show," okay, where's is it on Netflix? I'm like, no, it's on YouTube. I can finally say, yeah, it's on
Yeah, it's
Netflix.
not split up.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
definitely, what I would hope is that since they rescued it, like Netflix has rescued. I don't know. I never watched any of the show, but Lucifer, I know that got basically 2 seasons because of Netflix. I'm hoping
Yeah,
that
well, that's getting a sixth season.
yeah,
That's also been announced as well.
yeah.
It's getting a sixth and final season.
So what I'm hoping is like, yeah, Cobra Kai. Hopefully it gets the views that it could be interesting that they see on Netflix, and then they can kind of continue the story.
I mean, honestly, it's gonna get more views on Netflix than it'll get on YouTube. Like, I'm just being serious. Like,
Yeah,
that's honestly gonna be true for the show. And to be fair, like, a lot of a show's life usually comes within like that first like week or two when it initially comes out. So this is kind of giving people, giving the show like a second chance at kind of getting those views for the first two seasons, and then also getting it for season 3 as well. And yeah, like
didn't they do that with
that
Brooklyn Nine-Nine? Oh, that was the other studio that did that. But
which one?
I think one of the other studios picked up Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I know because it got
Oh yeah,
canceled
yeah,
originally.
that
So but like,
yeah,
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 I
no,
feel
no,
I feel like that's happening
you're
more and more
correct.
these days, where someone else is like, if it's failed and someone sees the opportunity, they're just like, you know what?
Well, they'll
Yeah, we'll
pick it
try it
up.
out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right because yeah, well, speaking of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, because I've been watching it, they recently had to scrap like I think 4 episodes that they created for season 8, and they're starting all over again. And this is according to Terry Crews, which by the way, he's like the best character. Well, I don't know. He's kind of like the best character to me. I love him throughout the whole show. He's just great. And yeah, like during his interviews talking about because of all the protests that's happening in America, they've kind of gone back to the drawing board and how they're going to be presenting certain episodes and stuff like that, and in order to kind of maybe like address those issues. And to be fair, like Brooklyn Nine-Nine kind of addresses a lot of issues when it comes to the police and like race crimes and stuff like that. There's like a whole episode centered around Terry Cruz's character, who's an African American cop, but during a when he's trying to look for something like that he lost like at night, he gets stopped by a police officer who thought he didn't like belong in the neighborhood he was in, even though he lived there. And so it's a big like kind of discussion about like real events that happen in America through the lens of an otherwise like comedy show, and they do a good job. And I think like a lot of sitcoms do a good job at kind of presenting a lot of these issues. Like another show that I watched growing up was The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and that also had an episode where Will Smith and his cousin Carlton get arrested driving a car because they were African American, and they didn't like the cops didn't think they owned the car and presumably thought they stole it. And unfortunately, they also didn't, because I think they were taking care of it for like a neighbor or something, like a rich neighbor of theirs. So
It's
they
like, yeah,
had
sure,
to
taking care of it.
yeah, exactly, right. So it's multiple like bad circumstances that kind of lead them to them having to spend the night in jail. And yeah, like there's a lot of shows that kind of address issues when it comes to discrimination. They also have it in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like one of the characters come out as being like bisexual in the later seasons. Like the main captain is actually gay, and it's played for jokes, but it's also discussed in a like a diverse and kind of multilateral perspective, rather than just being like, haha, like it's you're a minority or something. It's not like that, and I think that's why people really like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. You can do those really funny moments, but then kind of combine it with all the kind of real stuff in between. So yeah, like if for them, if they have to take time in order to make a better season, I'm all for it. And you're completely right. The thing is, from my understanding, because it used to be on Fox and then it went to NBC, and there's less and less episodes. So yeah, like when they start having to make less and less episodes of shows, isn't that kind of like when it's kind of like the not the death nail of a show, but it's kind of like they have to kind of slow down production, and that is kind of leading it to ending? Or is that just me kind of overanalyzing?
I think it's a bit of both. I think
Bit of both,
I,
yeah.
I think
I don't
like there
know.
are some studios or channels, whatever there are, they just like it works in this type of format, because I think in
Mm,
obviously regular TV they're gonna think of like time slots, like okay, like your time slot works really well of like having this many episodes before this season comes back on, and like
hmm
I feel like that TV is slightly different than like something like a Netflix where it's kind of like always on demand type of thing.
hmm
And even just going back to Cobra Kai, since it survived, I guess, on YouTube, I would assume their budget wasn't too big. And like even then, it didn't really need a budget because like Cobra Kai doesn't really have any special effects. So like something like a comedy show or a show where it's more grounded, it's a lot easier to kind of pick it up, and kind of have more
hmm
episodes. Um,
It's especially when you've got like also Fox also got absorbed recently by Disney.
good
I'm
old
pretty sure
Disney.
NBC. I'm pretty sure NBC is a part of Disney. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know, but maybe it is.
Yeah, I mean that seems to make like the most sense. That yeah, I think it actually is. Yeah, so Disney owns NBC
They're in a
Universal.
lot
So
of
there you
things,
go.
don't they?
Yeah. So you see, it makes more sense, given that again the acquisition only kind of happened recently, like in 2019. I want to say the Disney
Yeah, it happened
acquisition
like this time
of
last year.
Fox.
It happened like around this time
Yeah.
last year. So there's going to be, I think, a lot of like I still don't think we've seen the full effect of it. I guess because like
Well,
I just
but
remember when it happened, they're just like, oh yeah, we canceled this show, and it was kind of like, yeah, we kind of get it. And I think it's like I think moving forward now it's going to be like looking at what are the remnants of what came out and what can we cancel, or like continue on, because I think what
Mhm.
happened is obviously when they merged there was a lot of stuff where it's like we don't need this division anymore, bye people, and they're probably just like they obviously probably want to start a new, I guess.
Well, that yeah, exactly. And with something like I was saying with Brooklyn Nine-Nine, like that was already a property that kind of went from Fox to NBC before the like merger, but maybe that was like part of it. Like that's like, oh hey, look, we're already taking this show, like, why don't you just sell off all your assets to us? It makes a lot of sense. And with that being said, like, another show that's also having a lot of kind of changes happening with its syndication is South Park. At the moment on HBO Max, there are 5 episodes that aren't available on HBO Max, and they're all due to the depictions of the Prophet Muhammad, who's the main kind of religious figure in the religion of Islam. I remember watching like going through it, all the South Park episodes back in the day, and from memory, like the episode that they talk about, which is like the Super Friends episode, it's not that bad. But I do remember like the big controversial episode, which was about like how they had to, because it got changed so much on the actual episode. Every time they said, like the Prophet Muhammad's name, they like replaced it with like a bleep sound. So the whole episode is just like bleep, bleep, bleep because they can't talk about it, right? Which again played onto the censorship, kind of problem, which was the kind of core part of that episode of South Park. Again, Matt and Trey Parker are kind of excellent.
Well, I'm so, well. That's the thing. I'm actually quite surprised that I guess South Park's still going. Like, out of everything that's getting changed, cancelled, whatever it may be, South Park seems to always prevail. And I think it's like, obviously Comedy Central probably like maybe toes the party line, but they're just like, we know for a fact, like, our channel is known mostly because of South Park, and we can't get rid of our flagship title. Like, I think even if they wanted to get rid of it, they're just like, well, it's freaking South Park. Like, we can't do anything about it.
Well, I mean, if it wasn't such a cash cow, they would get rid of it. That's the thing ultimately, right? Like, it's not as old as Simpsons, but it's like, it's in that kind of era when it was created, and it's very modern, and people can kind of, even though a lot of episodes kind of feel aged, especially if you didn't grow up watching it. Even I didn't grow up watching it, and like when I was initially going through it, I think the first couple of seasons are a bit of a slog, just because it's like, oh well, I didn't understand what was going on at the time, but now as someone who's older and more aware, like I understand a lot of the jokes and injury. Like, I mean, they made fun of like Harvey Weinstein in like old episodes of South Park. So it kind of shows that they kind of had they knew what was going on in terms of what was going on in Hollywood and pop culture. But yeah, that's the state of things with South Park. But then on top of that, since we're talking about shows and things being shut down, Microsoft also recently shut down their Mixer online streaming platform, and have had that merge with Facebook gaming. So that's kind of something that they changed as of recent. That was a big deal, especially since they paid. I think they like had a contract with Ninja for like 100 million or something.
It was like, yeah, they had
ridiculous
Ninja
like
and they also had Shroud, which are, I guess,
Shroud,
two of the
yeah.
biggest like streamer gaming guys out
Yeah.
there. And it is quite weird. It's like, look, they tried at least to at least have it, but it's still technically not really going away. They're merging with Facebook Gaming, so I feel
Well, I
like,
mean,
or like having some sort of percentage in that, because like I feel
yeah,
like,
but
yeah,
that basically makes it disappear. Because here's the thing: when you look at the stats for Mixer and Twitch and like their kind of growth,
mm.
um, Mixer basically didn't grow at all. Like between, I think, this time last year and to now, whereas like everything else, I think Facebook Gaming in particular grew the most out of all the platforms. But it was in particular Mixer, despite all the things. I just got the stats pulled up now. So from Facebook Gaming, in 2018 had about it grew by 210%. Whereas what is it, like YouTube Gaming, it grew like 16%. Twitch grew 20%, but Mixer only grew by like about 0.2%.
Mm.
So even though they paid all this money, right, into, yeah, so Mixer had here we go, April 2019, they had 37 million people watching, and then it only grew by like 600,000, so 0.2%. So whereas Facebook Gaming, it's like it had 86 million in April, and then in April 2020 it had 219 million, so a 238% increase. Like it's just crazy that even though they poured all this money, they weren't able to get any of the retention. And I think part of it came from the fact that anybody who cared about Ninja or who cared about Shroud, yeah, they'd come to Mixer, watch him play. But after he was done, they probably didn't stay around to check out any of the other people who were playing. Like even Twitch, in April 2019, they had 750 million, and then in April 2020 they had like 1.5 billion people watching. It's like 100% increase. Almost.
Yeah. Twitch basically it does have the market share, and it has the I think even if you don't know gaming streaming per se, you would know like Twitch.
But even YouTube gaming, even Facebook gaming, those have at least like had a significant amount in the double digits in terms of increase from this time last year. Like YouTube, 279 million to 461 million, 65% increase. Mixer, on the other hand, 0.2% increase. Like that's the difference, right? I think ultimately they just saw that Microsoft made the decision that, hey, this isn't an area that they want to actually invest in because they don't have the infrastructure there. And they even said that they're going to try and invest more money and more kind of manpower into xCloud because, again, it makes sense. Microsoft has their cloud feature. I think, what is it, Azure, right? If I'm not mistaken, the Azure.
Gaming, whatever it is.
Well, not as
It's a
whatever.
cloud thing.
Yeah, their cloud network systems that they have there. So they have, and it makes sense because I think even like PlayStation and stuff are moving all their kind of cloud tech over towards Microsoft in order to try and compete with Google, which Stadia is basically failing as well because they
It's Google.
Mixer, well, in the sense that like Mixer is to like the streaming platforms what Stadia is to online streaming of games, right? It's a very similar thing. It's just they just thought that kind of throwing money at this thing would be enough to kind of get people interested in the product, but the product itself isn't that great. Even though, from my understanding, Mixer had some like good like features over Twitch here and there, but again, they weren't able to kind of get people going over there because even like it sounds like a good idea, here's a new market, try and start a new Mixer account, but then nobody's there to watch your video game. So what's the point? You might as well just stay on Twitch, even though a lot of people don't like Twitch, but it's kind of like, oh, well, what choice do I have? I either stream here or I stream on YouTube or I stream on Facebook Gaming, which also has like exclusive. And even I think Facebook Gaming offered to I think they had I think it was like double the amount. Like that's the rumor that they doubled the original contract price to have Ninja and Shroud stay on Facebook Gaming because they were going to be kind of holdovers from Mixer, but they said no, we don't want to continue, and they got Mixer and Facebook Gaming to basically like buy them out. So in the end, like Ninja and Shroud, I think Shroud ended up with 10 million and Ninja had 30 million, so they basically have
they're
won out
basically they can continue what they've been doing, which is just play games.
Yeah, exactly.
What a life.
They're $30 million richer, and they can go back to playing on Twitch again since they're basically freelancers. So that's kind of a big deal. So yeah, that's the state of things from the streaming wars, the online streaming video game streaming wars. Next news agenda is The Last of Us 2 that's come out. A lot of big praises from industry critics. It's currently sitting at a 94% on Metacritic, but it currently has a 4.5 score by users. There's currently 80,000 plus ratings, but it used to be much smaller as well. I think it used to be like 3.3, but that's the kind of thing that you always see with reviewing, right? You have like people who like genuinely like review it bad, but then you also have review bombers. But it goes kind of both ways. There are people who kind of give like 100%, but then there's also people who give like 1, right? and I think a lot got deleted. It's the same situation with the Last Jedi, right? There was a lot of really negative scores. Those scores kind of changed, and it was static the entire time.
It's
But
like it always
so I
stayed
won't
the
be
same. Yeah.
look. So I won't be surprised if in the next couple of days the user score goes up, and it'll be like at least like a medium score, like give it like a 5.5 or something. But I think the average person who's been playing this game, they enjoy the graphics, they enjoy the sound and stuff, but the story, I think a lot of people said the story isn't good.
Well,
And
like even like my thing is like I haven't played Last of Us 2, but
Mhm.
I don't even praise Last of Us 1 as that well like is that amazing of a game either, purely because like I think everyone goes back to the story. It's like the first game story is pretty damn good. It's probably one of the
Mhm.
best stories that we have in the video game medium.
Yeah.
And it looks really well for a PlayStation 3 game.
Mhm.
I think my whole problem with The Last of Us, was the first one, was basically its video game mechanics in and of itself were pretty bad.
Mhm.
Not only like the
But I
puzzle,
think
I think the puzzles were like moving boxes here and there, and I did not like the shooting. That was my always thing. I'm like, this shooting does not feel good.
yeah.
And I've heard some criticisms of the second one where it's a little bit better, but it's not like it's no like good third person shooter. And I guess it's like yeah, it's there to maybe portray a feeling or something like that, but yeah, for me, like as far as I know with Last of Us, it is part story and part gameplay. And obviously
Mhm.
I think what I've heard from The Last of Us Part 2 is that it's a lot of it is actually the story and kind of like
Oh
cinematics than
yeah.
there actually
I think
are gameplay. So I think if you don't like the story, it really hampers the whole experience then.
Well, yeah, I think universally, even from yeah, again, I didn't have PS like PlayStation console, but like from what I've read online, like generally everybody kind of agrees that like the gameplay isn't the best part of the Last of Us game. It's just kind of bearable, It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess I'll deal with this kind of broke back, kind of third person shooty mechanic with like what craftable elements to it, but overall, like the whole point of why people enjoyed the game was the story. But then, like you said, like in this game, it's kind of more of the same gameplay, except it's just polished, but it's just like a polished third person shooter. It's like it doesn't really do too much from the first game. So now all that's left is okay, well, hopefully it has a good story. And that's not the case. So, it kind of leaves a lot to be wanting given the first game too. And one really interesting thing that I saw is that from the trailer and the actual game, they actually had different. They swapped the models for the male character. I forget his name. The
Oh, Joel.
Ellie Joel. Joel. There you go. Because in the trailer they show like an older Joel, with like gray hair and stuff like that. But in the actual game, like in reality, he's like much younger because spoilers for anybody who's going to watch it. He kind of dies pretty early in the second game. So it was kind of a bait and switch. They even like showed like in this article that I'm reading, one of the lines that he says in the trailer, it actually belongs to a completely different character in the actual game. So again, it's only almost like this kind of again, it's not too surprising that sometimes like when people want to release a game and kind of hide what actually happens in a video game or a movie. They did that in the Avengers movie as well. Like if you remember, like they had in the trailer like the Incredible Hulk being in Avengers Infinity War, but he actually wasn't the Hulk in any scene other than at the very beginning. So just things like that to kind of throw people off the scent of what's actually happening in the actual game. But I do find it interesting because I think a lot of people had an interest in, oh, well, maybe I can play as Joel, or maybe Joel's going to play like a major part in the game in some capacity. They obviously decided to kill them off. And I think the other controversial thing is I think you play as like a completely new character that is pretty unlikable. So people are like, oh, I don't like the second half of this game. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
I've heard things as well where it's like it's like kind of when we were talking about 13 Reasons Why, where they in season 3 they shoved in Annie, and you're basically like, here's this all like character attention and development for this one character. Please like her, and then everyone's like,
mhm,
yeah, no, we don't. And from
yeah.
what I've heard of Last of Us Part 2, it's kind of the same thing. Where it's like we're gonna randomly insert this character, forget about what we had before, and now you're supposed
Mhm.
to love this person, and like build a relationship with this person, but like it probably didn't do the same job, or it didn't even do as well of a job as what they did with Joel and Ellie.
Yeah.
There's a reason why people are kind of pissed off, I guess, of
Hmm.
kind of Joel dying. It's because they did such good moments with them in the first game. That you're
Well,
like,
yeah,
okay, I'm attached with these characters, but no one's attached to this new character, and you're really trying to force us to like this character, even though,
hmm
but it's not going off genuine. I think that's also a problem as well. Like the writing is apparently much worse in comparison to like
yeah,
what they're trying to do.
yeah. From what I understand, there's like a lot of, like, again, I won't spoil too much, but like from what I understand and what I've read, there's a lot of like kind of plot holes and things that kind of don't make sense, especially with the ending and character motivations that end, that kind of lead to the end events that happen. Also, as a side note, JB Hi-Fi, which is a retail store here in Australia, apparently they're not accepting trade-ins of The Last of Us, so that's something to be that's pretty interesting as well. Since a lot of this game, they've been saying, oh, there's a lot of sales for this game, but I think you have to kind of wait till like the first like week or two of a video game just to see whether the sales are consistent, and like here, and that people aren't kind of returning it immediately or trading it in for the game.
Yeah, and I think
So
that's the that's a kind of a semi general problem as well with I guess single player games that are like, yeah, you can fit like that you can finish basically in a few days. I think that's why I think a lot of people back in the, I guess, 360 PlayStation 3 generation, they always have it tacked on multiplayer mode to kind of keep it there. But I feel like I think more and more now everyone's just like, okay, like I think that's kind of like the battle of like trading
well, I
in
think
games.
well, I mean, quote unquote, back in the day, right? Like, if for most people, if you had a game, like people who play the game for the multiplayer just to kind of return it like within the week, so they can get like a full refund or get like a higher cut on like a trade in or something. That's gonna happen like regardless, right? Like regardless of, because that's just kind of the general play style of that person. But when you make like a bad game that makes people want to return it, like that's just a reflection of the quality of the game itself. You can't control for people who, because whether you make a good or bad game, if people want to rush through it in order to get the a return dollar for it, that's not going to make a big difference whether the game quality is good or not. But with something that's bad, you can control whether you make a good game or not, and I think that's an indicator. Because I know for me, like I never really traded in games, but I would keep games that I like, and that's like usually most of the ones that I bought back when I still played like on console and stuff. I even had I still have my old copy of Crash Bandicoot, which, by the way, is also getting a sequel for Crash Bandicoot 4. It's about time, which is a really really good time for a game. 'Cause I think the last game came out in like the two like I want to say late 90s or early
Well, yeah,
2000s.
they've like there've been all these other random games, but since it's called technically Crash 4, I think that, yeah,
Yeah.
this is obviously a continuation from like, yeah, Crash 3, which is like the last game on the PlayStation 1 generation,
hmm
which I think was like probably, yeah,
And
1998, 2000, around there.
yeah, you
Um,
see, I played I guess it's like the re-release on the Xbox because they had that one come out,
oh yeah,
the Crash
the
Bandicoot 3
collection.
come out.
Yeah, there was that
Yeah, yeah,
collection,
yeah.
and I think before that, obviously, it like because it's technically still owned by Activision. Um, so then it's still got because I do remember there's two random Crash platformers that were like the Monster in Time, where I think there was a monster you get to control, and there was like all this other stuff. As far as like, and it's kind of experimented, going back and forth, but like it sounds like this is kind of going back to its roots, almost.
hmm
And yeah, Crash Bandicoot's one of those things where it's like I feel like obviously we had a collection for Crash, and we also have one for
hmm
Spyro. So I wouldn't be surprised at some
hmm
point, maybe next year or the year after
And
that, we'll get a new Spyro game.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely happening. Like, I think one of the things that we've kind of seen is they basically put out these remakes, sorry, not remakes, like HD upgrades, and they're seeing whether or not people enjoy the games, and whether it sells a lot. I played most of like Spyro 1 and 2, but like I kind of put it down because I was like, collectathons, I'm kind of getting a little bit bored of it. But I might pick it up later. Who knows? But like with the Crash Band, man, like I don't know if I could go back and play like the old Crash Bandicoot game because they're pretty backbreaking in terms of like some of the things you have to do. and some of the level designs and stuff. I liked Crash Bandicoot 3. That's a really, really good game. That's a very well polished game.
Yeah, three's added like all the stuff of like the motorcycle, I think, right? Or is that like, or was it? I think that was technically the semi fourth one or whatever the hell it's called.
No. I think it's the third one. You have the motorcycle in random events, but again, it could be me misremembering. But yeah, like Crash 4 is good, and also the fact that they also re-released the Crash Team Racing as well, which I think did quite well too. So yeah, I think the new game is going to have like a lot of new mechanics. Like from the trailer that came out, there's a lot of new mechanics that are coming out, like slowing down time, and I guess like new suits and masks and stuff that you can wear. So I think they're going to have a lot of fun making this new game coming out for like new fans and old fans to enjoy. So looking forward to that.
Well, yeah, especially since because like I guess when it comes to really platformers, like there's like the really hardcore ones like Super Meat Boy or Celeste, but like if you want like ones that are kind of for all general audiences, you only really have like Nintendo to really do that. So I feel like Crash should always come back.
There was the I think like the SpongeBob Bikini Bottom rehydrated.
Does that really count? You know what's really funny about that? Like that game has a very interesting story if you look it up, because for some reason I think people have done documentaries of why this game is kind of persisted of like this random titled SpongeBob game, and it's actually a well-known game to speedrun for some reason. So it is very interesting that for some reason, it got enough attention to get a remastered, as you're about to say.
I think well, here's the thing. Like I think that game had a lot of like fan popularity because I think a lot of the game assets weren't utilized properly, or you know, they didn't have enough time to make things and stuff like that. Whereas this new HD like rehydrated version of it kind of put those assets back in and made it better. So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like interested. I like SpongeBob. I don't know if the game's any good. I guess it's come out, so I'll have to check it out and see if it's any good when the time comes. But one thing that I won't be able to play will be Cyberpunk, which has been delayed to November 19th. Now, this is obviously old news now, but I don't know. I was very disappointed because I really want to play Cyberpunk, and it was supposed to come out in June, I believe, and then it got delayed to September, and now it's in November. Again, I'm always like, look, I'd prefer the game have more polish, and you know, maybe part of the reason why it's getting delayed is because of you know, all the stuff with coronavirus and stuff, but then also all the next gen console stuff. Like maybe they're trying to make it more like next gen ready, so they're kind of taking more time, and because there's all the free updates that are going to come out, such as like multiplayer and single player updates and like skins and like missions. All that's going to come out. So you know, for me, waiting isn't that big of a deal, but I just want to play it because it looks so good.
Or release like a demo, because do game companies even release demos anymore for new games? Like I feel like that used to be a thing. It'd be really cool to at least play something. Yeah, that it'd be really cool to at least play it. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Like, you know, at the time of recording, you know, I think later on, like, or tomorrow or something, they're going to be releasing the Cyberpunk like nightlife trailer or gameplay or something. That was supposed to come out like a month or so ago, but I think because of all the protests that are happening in America, they kind of were like, oh, you know, we're gonna, you know, respect all that, and we're gonna do it like, you know, at a later time. And so that's going to come out, I think, tomorrow. So I expect for news coming out soon about it. But you know, with all the stuff that's happening with Cyberpunk, I'm happy to wait. It's just, I don't know. I just want to play it because this is the game that I've been hyped for like maybe, I want to say like the past 2 years, because that's when we've got like the most news. Like, because we've known this game has been in the making for about like 7 years now.
Yeah, they announced it with that lady and the whole thing, but like we didn't really actually see what the game was actually going to be about until like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think when they kind of released the initial kind of gameplay trailer, where they had you kind of showing the actual mechanics of the game, and they showed like, you know, what the shooting is like, what the graphics is like, what's the, you know, an everyday kind of conversation in the game is like you know, it's kind of like Deus Ex Human Revolution, but better, like significantly better, because I was kind of disappointed with that game. Like, at least, you know, the decision mechanics were good, but it's just like all your decisions kind of mean diddly squat in the end. So hopefully they can kind of pull it off with this game. And I think CD Projekt Red is people that you can kind of trust or put your trust in rather going forward. But yeah, that's the state of Cyberpunk. So yeah, I guess we'll have to wait till November to play it. We also had the new Marvel's Avenger game, and well, not come out, but rather the first kind of trailer come out, and it seemed to be far more co-op focused than I think the original game. So I think you can have up to 3 like other players, or you can play alongside like AI, which is kind of a good thing because I don't know, like I don't know. It's much different than what I originally thought this game was gonna be like, but it just seems to be more of like a third person like kind of brawler. Like everybody kind of, if you're like they're all like different quote unquote classes, right? Like if you're the Hulk, you're like a I don't know, like a
the tank.
barbarian
Yeah,
class,
yeah.
tank class, and then if you're like Thor, you're kind of like a fighter, damage dealing class. And the thing is, like they've also released it in the past. There's going to be a lot of RPG mechanics, such as equipment that'll give you like boost your skills or give you different abilities and stuff. And so yeah, there's a lot of stuff there that could be pretty interesting. But I don't know, something about this game just kind of feels really like bootleg. Like it's just trying to be like kind of fill in the void that the Avengers movies and Marvel, because Marvel, obviously, everything they've had planned up has kind of been foiled because of the coronavirus. And, for example, like, Black Widow and WandaVision, like all that was supposed to kind of come out by now, but it's all been delayed. So, yeah, like this is kind of trying to fill that void, but I don't know, the story doesn't look too good either. Like Kamala Khan, I don't know, doesn't seem that interesting as a character either. I didn't really like.
For that, like I think for what I've seen of it, and I never really got the hype for this. Even when they first announced it like a year ago or so. I think it's like and like obviously seeing the gameplay, I think people are just kind of like, okay, like this is not, because like obviously I think it's done by one of the Square Enix semi teams that are kind of overarching on it. Like what I thought it was going to be is kind of a little bit more like, okay, it has RPG elements, so it's like it's kind of like more like, I guess more like Crystal Dynamics kind of Tomb Raider, where you kind of maybe like upgrade some certain stuff and then you kind of play it like more single player. And obviously the I think the intent now, I don't know if it was always the case, but it's like more co-op focused because you're the Avengers, you're gonna play with other characters, and always have this, I guess, online element to it. So I think I've seen a lot of comparisons to like, oh, this is like another games of service game, like an Anthem or kind of like a Division, where it's like, oh yeah, we want you to play multiple missions over and over again, have different things to like level up, and I would assume there's loot in it or something. There has to be a reason for you to kind of go back and play the game over and over again. But even the gameplay, it doesn't look that interesting. Like it doesn't have like cool combos as far as I know. Like it looks okay. It doesn't have this unique feature, I guess, of like using the Avengers to its like, I guess, full potential. But I guess we'll have to wait and see what if this will continue to go on or update or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I might give it a go, like maybe when it goes on like sale or something. But I don't know. It doesn't really seem any good. And also, all the characters look really bootleg too. Like, and I get it. Like, they can't use the actual appearances.
They can't use Chris Hemsworth's face as the Thor,
yeah.
so they're just like, we'll get someone who kind of like looks like him. Yeah.
I don't know. It just kind of looks like they just kind of changed some of the sliders, but like kind of like on a character creation sliders, but they just look really weird. Like very what is it? Uncanny Valley. But yeah, I guess the other game that has also kind of come out over the past couple of days is the new Star Wars Squadrons game. Now I think the game kind of looks like a spiritual successor to the like the X-wing, like the Star Wars like X-wing games and stuff like that. I remember I used to play those games like when I was younger. It looks pretty dope. It's like a 5-on. I think it's like basically made to be like a 5-on-5 squadron fighter. So there's like 5 people who are really playing, but there will also be kind of AI players that you'll fight alongside. So you don't necessarily, so it won't feel empty while you're playing either. And yeah, like I really, in the old Star Wars Battlefront 2 game, they had these kind of ground to air to space battles, and I really kind of like the space battles. I know they have it in the new Battlefront game, but from my understanding, it's not as good as it was in the old Battlefront game. So hopefully, this particular game focuses a lot more on the combat and makes it feel more unique and fun. And maybe they'll have stuff like the trench run from like the episode A New Hope and stuff. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it. Hopefully it'll be at like a decent price too.
Yeah,
Um,
I think there was an Amazon leak where it's like I think it's like $10 to $20 cheaper. Because yeah,
mhm,
I'd assume there's maybe not as much content, and obviously it's mostly, I would say, probably a multi game, more than anything.
exactly. I think it will have like a single player component to it, but it's obviously not going to be the only main thing about it. The other news that came out in regards to Star Wars is that Mark Hamill has a secret cameo in the fifth episode of The Mandalorian season 2. So that's something to also kind of look forward to going forward. And oh, I guess the last thing is like more of a rumor than actual news, but apparently there's been some rumors coming out that maybe they might be doing like a bit of like a reboot on Star Wars to kind of get away from like the new trilogy stuff and maybe start calling it non-canon. Did you watch Star Wars Rebels, all of it, John?
I think I watched probably like about 2 seasons.
Two seasons. Oh,
I
okay.
did drop it. Um,
Yeah. To be fair,
so what's that got to do with anything?
oh well, there's a pretty important. I think in like the final season, there's like basically Ezra like goes to this like kind of like a mirror dimension where they're able to kind of see certain events that happen in the show, and then happen in like the Star Wars universe. This is actually one of the ways that during one of the seasons, like Ezra kind of meets up with I forget the character's name. Uh, she's going to be the main character from the Clone Wars. Anakin's
Ahsoka Tano.
Ahsoka Tano. So like he meets Ahsoka Tano when she's like much older and she's got like white lightsabers and stuff, and she starts fighting Darth Vader, and he has to leave. That was in one season, but then in a later season, during this kind of multi-dimensional kind of Jedi mirror, teleporters or whatever, he sees that battle and is able to like help her and save her from dying like during the battle with Darth Vader. So it's really cool. And so one of the predictions is, oh, like this might be one way that they're able to kind of retcon stuff, because oh, maybe they might make it that, oh, this is just like a alternate universe, and oh, Sidious died in this one, and that led to this and that. I'm probably doing a really bad job at explaining it, but there's a lot of really big stuff that they've introduced in all of Filoni's Star Wars kind of shows. And given that they're making The Mandalorian more or less his kind of new live action TV series, I wouldn't be too surprised if they try and lean into that rather than lean away from it, because in the end, like that's what's making people want to come and watch Star Wars in the end. The
Yeah, like
Mandalorian.
what? Yeah, what? Like the
Yeah.
Mandalorian, or like a kind of extension of characters from kind of Clone Wars. It always feels like it's like
I mean,
okay, yeah,
Even Clone Wars, right? Like people came back to watch Clone Wars. People, even though Rebels wasn't, people didn't like Rebels as much as Clone Wars, and obviously, like not everything in it was like like amazing. It still was a good series and better than anything Disney has released with a Star Wars name, right? And even they had to go with what is it, Star Wars Resistance, that didn't have Filoni on it, had the same art style, and that was horrible. I gave a pretty scathing review of that particular show. On
well, it
on
only
on
lasted 2 seasons or whatever. So like, I think that will give
Yeah,
you like a clear indication of like,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Well,
the
yeah,
show is
exactly.
quality.
It was so bad I didn't even know it even premiered. I was like, oh, is this show out? Oh, I better go watch it,
Like, no one's
right?
talking about this show.
Yeah, exactly. And it did really bad again because it's set during the new, Disney Star Wars period.
The
So it
sequel
makes
Star Wars trilogy, aka the segment of the saga that no one likes.
Yeah, exactly. So it makes a lot of sense that if they want to kind of build a universe that's within the mind of Filoni, who is kind of on the good side of George Lucas and is the one who's kind of pushing things like Baby Yoda and Mandalorian and all that. It makes sense that if they want to kind of do something, they'd retcon things using things that he created, because he would be able to weave like a new timeline. And it might start with something like the Mandalorian. So we'll have to see going forward. But that's just something to keep in mind, that in the next couple of years, if it turns out that they're moving away from it, I predicted it on episode 107 of the Pancake Parlay. So I'm just putting that
Always
out
remember.
now. Always remember. But yeah, with that being said, I guess we'll move on to some other kind of rumors and that are now actually completely true. Rocksteady has been confirmed in making a Suicide Squad game. Now, this has been around for kind of a long time. Like, I think back when Batman Arkham Origins came out, at the end of that particular game, you had like one of the characters, Deathstroke, being recruited by Amanda Waller to join the Suicide Squad, but we never really got a game post like Arkham Origins. I think we literally had Arkham Knight come out,
and that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it. And then we've kind of been radio silent with the game, well, that game series going for a long time now. And it's actually really surprising because I only played Arkham Knight like relatively recently, I think like maybe 2 years ago now. And it's
Yeah,
kind of
and that's so weird because I remember that coming out and that was kind of like the start of like this semi-generation almost, and it's like it's gone by
2015.
it's such a long time ago now.
I mean, to be fair, it's kind of crazy to think like if you play that game and if you watch that game, it's kind of crazy that that game was made with the Unreal 3 engine.
Everything has that weird shiny gloss though. I think that's the only thing about the Unreal Engine that always annoys people, is that weird shine.
Gloss.
And I remember Arkham Knight did have a lot of like rain that made everything look shiny as hell.
But it looked fucking awesome.
It did look pretty awesome if you got it to run on your PC perfectly. But...
Yeah, I mean, well, now you can. The game's fixed. But yeah, like it makes me want to play Arkham Knight again, because other than all the vehicle components, which apparently somebody did like I remember reading about it, like someone did like a study or something on it. Apparently, like the vehicle moments only comprise like about like 20% of the game. So it's still a big chunk. So I can understand why people were like annoyed at those segments. I'm just glad like you don't have to do like all the Riddler trophies in order to, all the like challenges. There's like
I think there was like ones where
challenges.
it's like there were some weird ones where I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna do this. Where it's like,
oh yeah,
in this tank segment, never get hit once. I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, no thanks. Yeah, I've got no interest in doing that. And luckily, you don't need to do that in order to get like 100% completement of the main campaign or whatever, which is the only thing I ever care about. 100% completing the Batman.
So back to the Suicide Squad thing. Because like, is it the same game? Because like obviously we've seen like kind of leaked type of thing, and they've done these things where it's got kind of the Court of Owls. So
no. Okay, so
is this the same thing, or is this technically is there two studios working on like two games?
I don't know whether it's two studios, but there is definitely two different games that are being created. So we have Rocksteady creating the Suicide Squad game, and I believe WB is creating the
next Batman game,
the Batman Gotham Knights game. So, for example, over here, like I'm reading this based on the Eurogamer article. They kind of confirmed that in this, yes, there is definitely and also like I don't know if you've heard of Reset Era. They're kind of a website where a lot of people kind of do like leaks and conversation and discussions for games. And a recent domain was kind of taken for a Suicide Squad game, and that was like back in June. So that kind of gives a little bit of an indication that yes, WB Montreal are doing the Gotham Knights game, whereas the Suicide Squad game might be another one. And it's kind of interesting because there's another domain that was taken, which is called Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which is kind of like a play on words of a Deadpool comic called Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, which is actually a really fun comic. I do recommend If you're interested in Deadpool or comics that are like kind of meta, talking about like the comic universe, read that comic. It's very, very good. It's basically Deadpool kind of realizing that he's not real, and he starts just kind of killing everyone. He starts like killing Wolverine and then Magneto, kind of stuff. It's crazy, but it's really, really good. The kind of offshoot ones aren't as good, but that particular one is very, very good. But yeah, so it seems to be like, again, there isn't like any official release on like, who's making which game. Like, are Rocksteady making both the Suicide Squad game and the what is it, the Batman Gotham Knight game? But I think it kind of makes sense that maybe they're doing Rocksteady are doing the Suicide Squad game, whereas WB's doing the Gotham Knight game.
I
And I
think
think that
I feel like some hardcore fans will really hate that because they're just like, ugh, like
maybe
Rocksteady is not making another Batman game and it's a thing, and then they'll relate to Arkham Origins, which is like Batman, which isn't that bad. I think
no
I think a lot of people just hate it just because it wasn't the same
people
studio.
no people were salty. People are, I think, kind of rightfully salty, to be fair. That like I think in Origins they had the villain be Black Mask, and then they kind of do a bait and switch, and oh, it turns out Black Mask is the Joker, and people are kind of sick of, oh well, Joker's the main bad guy. Like even for Arkham Knight, people were like, oh my god, I can't believe Joker's in this game. But again, once the game actually came out, people were like, oh okay, how the Joker is in this game is good because he's not actually there. He's kind of like a manifestation of Batman's like insanity, and going crazy. But like yeah, like people kind of say, I think that was the main reason why people didn't like Origins. In fact, I think a lot of people like some of the fights in, or some of the boss fights in Arkham Origins, for example. I think people really like the Deathstroke fight, which I
Which,
don't think
which,
I
which
did.
I do remember that one. That was the one where you basically can't fail the quick time event. I think, or I think either way, it was very hard. I remember I had to
Yeah,
redo
I
it
think
over and over
yeah, I
again.
think yeah, you had to kind of match, like what he was doing. And I think obviously, like, nothing beats the what is it, the Mr. Freeze fight. Like that's probably got to be like my favorite Batman fight. And that was from um the
Arkham
second
City, yeah.
Arkham City, which is kind of considered to be like everybody's favorite
Well,
Batman fight.
I feel like there's contingent of Arkham City, but like, is the well that lidded that wells? And I think a lot of people would just like Arkham Asylum with the first one. It's like
Yeah, I'm
it's
more of
basically the pick of the two. Basically, they're pretty damn good games,
I
regardless.
think yeah, I think if you can get past all the like um all the broke back like kind of big bossy fights and the big Joker end game boss fight, if you can kind of just kind of overlook that particular fight, I think Arkham like Asylum is a much more like kind of comprehensive and tightly packaged game. Also, it's the only game that kind of makes sense that you can get all that stuff done in one night as compared to the the other games. Like you kind of go like travel back and forth, and you're telling me that's all supposed to be done in one night? Come on, man. I know he's Batman, but that's impossible, man.
Come on, even
Um,
Santa can't do that.
but yeah, like with the Warner Brothers WB Montreal game, which is the Gotham Knights. Again, none of this is confirmed. Like it might even be like the other way around. Like maybe Montreal's making the Suicide Squad game and Rocksteady's making the Gotham Knights game. We don't know yet. It might be. All we know is Gotham Knights is going to be technically like a reboot. It's not a continuation of the Arkham series. It's going to probably be called like Gotham, like the Gotham Knight series or the Knight series, right?
Hmm.
It makes sense, just because they want to kind of separate it from the legacy of the Asylum game, and what will happen. Like to be fair, it's quite smart because maybe in the future they might have like some kind of crossover, with like maybe they might have like the next three games come out which are in the Gotham Knights universe, and they might have like a big multi, like a classic like DC styled like multiverse events where like the Batman from the Arkham Asylum game meets the Batman from the Gotham Knights game or whatever. They might have something like that, and that would be an interesting thing to go for it. But yeah, we don't know. But I think the thing is with all the stuff that's coming out, like from Eurogamer and Reset Era, And the fact that DC is also coming out with their I think their online event that's happening, I think in September, if I'm not mistaken. The DC fandom event. I think that's when we're going to be getting a lot of the new information in regards to these games, especially with E3 and all these other big gaming events being cancelled. It kind of makes sense for DC to kind of release, yep, we're making this game and it's coming out soon-ish. We know there's a little bit of hints given out here and there about the Gotham Knights game, because we've seen a bunch of like owl insignias and I think like emblems from certain like characters or villains that people are kind of connecting the dots to. It's like, oh, this character is going to be in it because it's here or whatever, and Court of Owls because got giant owls or some shit in, I don't know.
Either way, I always like the pre-hype before the actual game reveal, because it's like, I think it's like one of those people. It's like, if you know your shit, you're okay.
Mhm.
Or if so, all you have to do is just look online, and then there's gonna be some guy who breaks down everything. It's like, well, this really means this. So like, I always like this type of moment where everything's kind of semi getting announced, but it's not officially announced. Yeah,
Mhm.
this is kind of my favorite time, and it's good that, like, even if E3 is gone, at least we're getting some new game reveals and game announcements.
Exactly. But speaking of things that are gone, um, recently Joel Schumacher, who was the director of many films, including The Lost Boys, Saint Elmo's Fire, sorry. But he also directed some Batman movies. He recently passed away at the age of 80. Yeah, like I mentioned, like he's kind of well known for doing well, notoriously known, I guess, for doing uh, Batman Forever and I think Batman and Robin, correct?
Yes, the last
And
two '90s ones.
which were extremely campy, but I think even he has admitted, like he kind of the fans were kind of right that his direction was a bit like a bit meh, ill-intended. But I mean, in the end, I kind of like that those movies exist, because it kind of is like a snapshot of what our generation was, or the like human civilization was at that period of time, where we used to think, yeah, this was good enough for a film. Bat nipples are good enough. Arnold
It was such a
Schwarzenegger.
'90s film.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I could watch that film. I feel like watching that film. I feel like watching all of them. And because I'll mention it in a moment. But I guess have you watched a lot of Joel Schumacher films? I haven't, so I can't really talk about like his other body of work. But what do you feel about Joel Schumacher?
I think Joel Schumacher is one of those very odd directors. He's kind of like what's his name? It's not Ridley Scott, but his brother. I forgot his name. And he passed away as well. A few years
Oh,
ago as well. He did that Unstoppable movie with the train. And he did Man on Fire. So I feel
oh,
like,
yep. Mm-hmm.
and I think that essentially Joel Schumacher encompasses that kind of style as well, where it's kind of like maybe B grade films, where it's like you make uh like passable films basically, and some of them are kind of like known really well. So like he did obviously Falling Down, which I think is a much well known film these days, because
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like Joker. So he took some inspiration of it. It's like it only really takes about one day to really like screw up your life and turn into a crazy person in society.
Mm-hmm.
He did some other films that, aside from just the Batman ones, obviously The Lost Boys, I think, is like very much an '80s/90s classic. You had Corey Feldman, and you've got Keith Sutherland being like vampires. So it's got that very campiness to it, but it's like very '80s. I know he also directed Phone Booth, which I always really liked that film. It's the one with
Yeah, so
Colin.
do I.
Yeah, so he directed that, and a weird one. He also directed that Phantom of the Opera film, where Gerard Butler's the Phantom of the Opera. So I feel like he was very much one of those directors where it's like he just kind of, his films never really, I guess, 100% like standard out. Like he's not a Nolan or anything like that, but
Mhm,
like his films are kind of like really good, serviceable films majority of the times. Like I
mhm,
haven't watched Saint Elmo's Fire, but I've heard kind of the same things where it's like, it's one of those like classic type of films almost, where it's like, yeah, you should probably watch it at least once. Um,
mhm,
and that's why it's kind of like you don't really see much of, like, I guess, the B grade director anymore, or if you do, they've really shoved on more to TV. Because like obviously when you talk about movie directors, you get all these high art people, and then there's just a lot of directors out there that do kind of B grade content, like all majority of the movies that you do actually see, but you don't actually know the director's name of them really. So it is kind of sad that he has passed. But I think he has had a pretty good career, and I think obviously, I guess the hardest part is he'll probably be most well known for the Batman things. But at least at that point, since he did something as iconic as Batman, at least he'll be in the conversation of, I guess, films for a very long time, if not forever. So then when people do like things of retrospective of like, let's watch all the Batman films, at least his name will be there, and at least he'll have like his stamp on it, I guess. Because he has mentioned before that, like, yeah, those two, because after Batman and Batman Returns, done by Tim Burton, especially the second one, everyone's like, okay, this film is very dark, like very, very, very dark. You know, you got the penguin eating the guy's nose. You've got all these like really creepy imagery and things like that. So I think like Warner Brothers at that time were just like, yeah, we just want something more campy, more kid friendly to sell toys, and I think that's why like, obviously Warner Brothers gave him a task and just like make it more kid friendly, and he's like, you know what, I'll make it more like the 60s film. Obviously, but like it like, and I feel like Batman Forever has gotten a little bit more better critical reception in most recent years. I feel like people are kind of coming back on that way. Like, they're just like, Jim Carrey wasn't that bad as a Riddler, and all this other type of stuff. And I think it's only really until Batman and Robin really broke the camel's back.
You know what I really loved about like about the Riddler and stuff like that. I actually really enjoyed. I think, was it Batman Forever? That's the third one, correct? I really loved like the opening sequence, like with like him being in a safe and having to escape it, and then like having Tommy Lee Jones like have like, there's like the scene with like how he's got like two girls, and like one of them's like dressed like an angel and the other one's like a devil, and his like suit is like, it's so bizarre, but it's like exactly what you would expect from like a comic book, like a really campy comic book. I think they absolutely like owned the direction. Like, it's just like the whole, if you kind of view the whole movie like one campy comic book, it's fine. But yeah, like obviously as a Batman as a character, and obviously as we've kind of seen in later movies, it's a much more complex. Oh, the other thing I really loved is Jim Carrey did like a different version of the Riddler, but I really liked him kind of going crazy over the course of the film, and I liked all the little like riddles and stuff. Like, I remember being like, oh, I want to make a cool kind of riddle that, like, well, not riddle, but rather like, there was like a card that he gives Mr. Wayne, and when he like pulls it, it kind of like erupts, like one of those like kind of pop out books, right? In the film, I always thought that was like the coolest shit as a kid. And I would have loved to make something like that, but obviously I wasn't creative or psychopathic, I guess, enough to make.
I think that's the one that you should point out. Yeah, not psychopathic enough.
Yeah, I don't have the time to send what is it, costume superheroes riddles, but yeah, great films. And it kind of leads up to another big, and probably the biggest news that kind of came out in all things DC, is that there's talks of Michael Keaton coming back to play Bruce Wayne in the new Flash movie. And it's absolutely bizarre because there's a lot of stuff that, like, just before we unpack this, there's a lot of other news that kind of came out too. For example, like Zack Snyder's like Justice League, the trailer, like new teaser trailer kind of came out. It's not really too much other than like showing a little bit of Darkseid here and there. I think it got actually leaked a little bit early because I think like Jason Momoa put it on his Instagram before like it got released on all other platforms.
He's always breaking the rules.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, someone really needs to kind of like get him to, kind of play ball with everyone, because that's pretty awkward from a social media perspective. But then you also had like Henry Cavill, like mentioned, in, I think, in an interview with Variety, that he was he's like a really big fan of Superman, and he really wants to come back, and hopefully he can play Superman for years and years. And obviously he really wants to play ball with DC, and especially ever since he wasn't playing ball, he's kind of coming back and wanted to kind of play the character again. So hopefully that all comes to pass. But yeah, with the whole Michael Keaton news, it's absolutely bizarre. Like, if they actually do have him come back, because we initially have him coming back as maybe playing Bruce Wayne. We're not actually too sure what exactly. There's two theories, right? The first theory is, okay, they're doing like a direct adaptation of the Flashpoint movie. Now, for people who aren't familiar, the Flashpoint kind of event is Barry Allen. He decides to go back in time in order to save his mother from being killed by the Reverse Flash. But by doing that, that leads to the creation of an alternate universe where Barry Allen isn't the Flash anymore. Bruce Wayne, uh, and his parents, back in the alley. It isn't that his parents get killed; it's actually Bruce Wayne who ends up getting killed, and as a result, his father ends up becoming Batman, but a more like hardened Batman, like kind of more similar to like the Punisher. Like he's willing to like kind of kill people. Whereas his mother becomes like criminally insane and becomes the Joker. I highly recommend. There's like three comics that kind of deal with it. It's like these three small comics which are about like that kind of alternate universe Flashpoint Batman dealing with like the final case about like trying to find the Joker, and the big reveal is, oh hey, the Joker's actually Bruce Wayne's mom, Martha Wayne. It's really excellently done, and especially since it's just kind of like a one-off that kind of eventually led into the New 52 universe. But essentially the whole basis of Flashpoint is Barry Allen tries to find Bruce Wayne, doesn't find Bruce Wayne, finds Bruce Wayne's dad, but then has to get him or convince him to help him get his Flash powers back so he can make the universe right again. The other really interesting part of this kind of version of Flashpoint universe is not Batman, Aquaman and Wonder Woman. They're both kind of from I guess Greek mythology. You have Aquaman from Atlantis, Wonder Woman from Themyscira. In universe, they were supposed to get married, but as a result, some other shit happens, and they all end up having a big war, like basically like a world war that's happening between Atlantis and Themyscira, and it's basically like destroying the whole world, obviously. And so that's something that's happening in the backdrop as well. So they have the opportunity to do that now that they have Gal Gadot playing Wonder Woman, and you also have Aquaman as well. So that's also something that they have the opportunity to do. So that's one direction that they can go with it. And they can have like Michael Keaton play, Batman's father, and just kind of be an homage to his previous role as Batman. But then the other way that there's another rumor of how they can go about doing it is the Flash ends up in the Michael Keaton Batman universe, but like 30 years in the future, and just seeing like, oh, what's that universe like? Is Catwoman still around? Is Penguin still around? It gives them the opportunity to kind of have that nostalgia effect, now that it's, it's like 90s nostalgia is here as well. So
It is
that kind of
time
gives.
for now 90s nostalgia to come back, sir.
Well, yeah, exactly. So like the opportunity to kind of jump on this kind of old school style of Batman from the past would be now, right? And just having Keaton reprise that role, and also give him like a bat suit that he can kind of move his neck around in. It's interesting that maybe they might go in that direction. On top of that, they might also maybe even do something like a Batman Beyond kind of thing as well, because again, it's 30 years in the future. Perhaps like it's like he's like an older Batman, and there's like a new Batman who's like played by a character like Terry McGinnis, which is like in the TV show. That could be something that they have too. So there's a lot of really flexibility in terms of what like they could do in this situation. And I think either could work. But I think like if they want to kind of jump on the nostalgia train, they probably will go with like the second version, which is Ezra Miller teleports into or accidentally travels into the Michael Keaton Batman universe, and he needs his help to escape and turn things right. And that's even considering if Ezra Miller is still the Flash, because I think his role is still up in the air whether he's coming back.
Well, that's why this news was such a big shock to me, because I'm like, wait a second, you're still doing that Flash movie? Like, obviously, like I think we're gonna get more used to not being studios being as so transparent. I think we're just used to that with Marvel just telling everyone about everything like years ahead of time. And I think Warner Brothers is very much like, yeah, we'll probably give you like hints here and there. So it's like we're at least doing they're like, at least we know that they're at least doing a Flash movie.
Mhm.
And it is quite interesting. They're like, okay, yeah, like like to make people get the numbers, which is maybe the thing of like, I don't know, like, so, yeah, obviously so far Wonder Woman, even Shazam and Aquaman have been pretty damn good in regards to not only its quality but also its box office returns. But obviously just to make sure that they've got like a hole in one, they're just like, yeah, let's just add Batman to it. Not only that, but we've got
Yeah,
Michael
which
Keaton Batman.
well, yeah, which probably does piss off a lot of people. Like, oh, great, another movie with Batman in it. Which to be fair, I totally get. I'm just not annoyed about it because I'm a big fan of Batman, so I don't care if Batman's in like a random movie. Oh, it's Justice League Dark, but Batman's here. It's like, they do that all the time in the comics. They try and get people outside the scope of a comic to usually come in and check out what's going on. I guess the thing is, if they had like Michael Keaton play as Batman, one of the things that they can potentially do is have a situation where there's like multiple actors playing Batman come in if they're having the Flash play in, like, because maybe they might have, maybe this could be an opportunity to try and get what's his face to come back as being Batman.
Be funny if it was like what, George Clooney, which they technically could, but it would be like
Well,
Christian
well, yeah,
Bale, or
yeah,
even
Christian
Ben
Bale,
Affleck, even
Ben Affleck, and
like
even the new guy,
Robin
uh,
Pattinson. Yeah,
Robin Patterson, right? It's a great way to kind of promote like multiple franchises. But I think the main thing is because of that, because of Avengers Endgame has kind of primed people into the concept of time travel and multiple universes into like a mainstream perspective. Like, here's the thing, this kind of stuff is commonplace among sci-fi and comics, like doing multiple dimensions and time travel. But like your average audience doesn't really understand, not understand, but like they haven't been exposed to those concepts, and so sometimes it kind of gets people out of it when they see things like that. But with Endgame making it more mainstream, it gives DC the opportunity to maybe try and introduce these kind of core concepts into their TV shows, while also like jump starting these other movies that are going to be coming out. Because, for example, in a movie where there's multiple different Batman, it would work in like a Flash movie, and then it would also go on to explain why there's a, Justice League Snyder cut, but then also the Justice League movie that came out like a couple of years ago, and then also this new Batman, Matt Reeves Batman. It kind of gives people to stop being confused about the fact that there's multiple different Batman on the screen at one time, which is usually something that a lot of places like DC and Marvel want to kind of avoid doing. Like, Marvel's obviously done a great job because they've just had like usually one face be this person, outside of like Don Cheadle, War Machine, but nobody really cares that much about War Machine, let's face it. But for all these other actors and universes and stuff, it kind of gives people the opportunity to be like, oh, okay, cool, there's like two Flashes, or we've seen Flash interact with like the CW universe, so we know that there is that potential to do crossovers.
well,
And
yeah,
that's what this.
yeah, it definitely could be there. I guess into the Spider-Verse moment almost, where it's like, that movie was basically like, oh, there's different Spider-Man from different universes. Then like, and I think like obviously they can play along with like, oh yeah, there's different Earths, like that exist. So then they can definitely be like, oh yeah, doing it this way or doing it that way. So I feel like
Yeah,
that
I
that
think
would be really cool.
yeah, that's like the nerdy side of like why that's cool. But ultimately, from a business perspective, it's just a good way to introduce these shows and these TV, and these movie, characters to the general audience and have them excited for potential new movies. Because imagine if they had like another character in it. They're like, oh, hey, this is like, let's say they're getting rid of Ezra Miller hypothetically, right? But they could still have him play like, if he's not the main actor in this, maybe they can still have him play a cameo, just so that they can be like, okay, you know what, we're still establishing that he was in this movie, but it's changing going forward. We're gonna just have him play a cameo, so they're not leaving on bad terms. I think that's what they can kind of do with this film, kind of like, and that's what essentially Flashpoint is supposed to represent. It's their way of tying up loose ends from the previous kind of comics, and in this case, tying up loose ends from the previous movies have left behind. So that's what I'm excited for with this news of Michael Keaton. Hopefully, it's true. Again, there's a lot of speculation that you can do just from the name Michael Keaton. We'll just have to wait till more information comes out.
And
Going
obviously
forward
he'll
about
be
what
like,
it
I'm
means.
Batman again. He'll be like, I'm Batman.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully he'll kill less people. But I guess he technically has like the same, if not similar, body count as Ben Affleck's Batman. I'm pretty sure, like two people he
Oh,
killed in.
yeah. There was something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he literally like kicks a dude down like a hole, like, and it's like, well, he's probably dead.
So
Like
don't
you
worry, he's
just killed
fine.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just broke every bone on his body. Classic Batman.
But
Um,
no, that's the thing. He didn't kill him. He just died because his bones just gave out.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, we'll go with that. But yeah, I guess we'll do some reviews. You've watched a couple of things.
Yes.
Uh,
So two, like basically both of these are very digestible, 30-minute chunk shows. And the first
mhm.
one is Ramy. This show is set in New Jersey, and it basically follows a guy named Ramy. He is a son of Egyptian migrants, and it's kind of
Okay.
his essentially kind of journey of basically becoming a Muslim migrant in America. And I guess him trying to battle between being a Westerner and also following his kind of traditions. So this has technically 2 seasons at the current moment. I just watched both of them, and I think it's a pretty good show. It kind of follows the same trend of kind of like comedy slash drama, dramedy type of shows. So if
Hmm.
you ever watch something like Atlanta or Louis or Master of None, these types of shows where there's kind of comedy elements to it, but there's drama to them. It's kind of in that same vein, and I would say it's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's probably not the best. I always really like Louis. The guy, Louis C.K. Was the main guy in
Hmm.
that one. Um, and this one just kind of follows, the journeys of that. And I thought it was pretty good because I think in general, it has a really good perspective on, I guess, I guess you don't really see media of, I guess, a Muslim immigrant coming over to like a particular country, and I guess the conflict between being a Westerner slash a migrant, and that's kind of what the show is kind of set. Where, for
So
example,
is he a first generation migrant or is he a second generation migrant?
I think he's born in America. I think
Okay,
that,
so he's yeah, so his parents are first generation and he's a second generation migrant.
yeah. And there
Yeah,
are
got it.
episodes with the parents. For example, like the mom, she does like a side job where she's like an Uber driver, and
Hmm.
obviously she doesn't have the same talking points as someone who grows up in a Western environment. So like when she's talking to this black lady, for example, she's like, "Oh, I really like your hair. It's better when it's straight, not like when it's all curly and stuff like that." So there's like
Right.
all these kind of like offhanded comments that kind of get done, where it's like you can kind of say that for like any type of generation of people coming over to another country and not knowing their traditions. But essentially, main story is about Rami, and I guess he's kind of learning who he is.
Hmm.
Obviously he's kind of conflicted because, like, in the first episode, like even from the get go, he's like, oh yeah, we're not supposed to have sex before marriage, and like obviously he has sex with multiple girls, or there's all these things where it's like, like he's trying to find himself of like what it actually means. But and then he has these friends who are also migrants as well, but they don't act very religious.
Hmm.
So then he has this whole thing where it's like, I want to have a good go to journey. I want to go and visit my extended family overseas. And then what he kind of realizes as well is like they're also very westernized. They're more westernized than him, because he thought he was going to have a spiritual journey going there, but everyone kind of acts the exact same. Um,
Hmm.
so he kind of has these whole kind of things of like, it's basically him just trying to discover himself. He does have some interesting moments as well with his friends. And I think in general, I think it gets a good to and fro of, I guess it wouldn't be glorifying one side or the other side. So as I mentioned before, there's like this, for example, like one of like his uncle, who kind of runs a business, and his jewelry business. He does these things where, like, one hand where he's like, he saves a woman getting attacked in the alleyway. It's kind of seeing a good deed. It's like, oh yeah, because like in Islam they tell you like you have to protect your women. So it's kind of like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, that's a really nice talking point. And then like literally straight like right after it, he's like, yeah, but my fucking industry filled with Jews, because they're all jewelries. Like I hate those Jews. So I feel like it kind of has this, at least like a pretty good balance of like, I guess it wouldn't been taking any one side, where it's like, oh yeah, someone could do a really nice thing, but at the same time also be really racist or something like that. Um,
Right. So yeah. So essentially, what you're saying is like it's kind of showing that there um, you know, there are people, there are good sides of cultures, but then there's still prejudices that cultures still have within them, and it's kind of exploring that kind of aspect through the lens of, I guess, Rami as a second generation migrant in America.
That's correct. And in the and in the second season, they actually touch upon that a little bit more, because he kind of I don't know what they call them. I think they call them sheiks, the kind of the priest guys for the
Yeah,
community,
the imams.
the imams. Yeah. So he
Yeah.
kind of goes into a community, and there's actually also a cultural difference between I guess his type of Muslim faith and like the other imams who are actually kind of like African, Muslim, and there's kind of conflict between them where like Rami's family is like, what are you talking about? Like, stop! Like they don't care too much if it's like not halal meat, for example, but like
Hmm.
the other side of things, they're like, yeah, we do. So I feel like that it kind of explores a lot of different types of things. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, overall, like I feel like not only it's really good to explore different types of cultures, not only that, but also I feel like it is quite funny at times. Like there's some really crazy stuff that I guess goes on. And I think one of the better episodes is where I get they do experiment of like when Rami was a kid, 9/11 happened, um, and
Hmm.
kind of like how like the little kids are like kind of like, are you a terrorist? And he's like, I'm not a terrorist. So there's all this like type of stuff like that, but like it's got some good, it's got some heart to it, but at the same time it's also quite funny. And I think that's, yeah, as we mentioned before about comedy. I think it like sometimes it's really good to kind of push the boundaries, and I think this show kind of does it. I have seen some other reviews of this show being like, this is not what a I guess Muslim family would act like, because like
Hmm.
the parents, I mean the kids swear in front of their parents and do all these things.
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of one of the things where it's like, I think there's a lot of different types of families where it's like, okay, this is probably not allowed if it's a more stricter environment, while other environments are a little bit more, I guess,
Well,
westernized.
yeah, I mean, I could kind of understand because I guess like they say that, you know, within Islam, like being pretty, um, like strict and faithful to your religion, like yeah, I guess people who fall into that category would probably say it like, oh, that's not really realistic. But I guess like because this is like a comedy show, it's not supposed to be realistic in every capacity when it's showing I guess a what is it, a contemporary Islamic family in America. It's supposed to show like a hyper um a hyper realistic version, maybe.
Yeah, like it is very much over the top. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff, and I think there's like one episode in season two, kind of about like having a bachelor party. I think like
Hmm.
I even saw the reviews for that, and it was like, nah, man, this episode went too far. It is kind of one
Oh,
of those
okay.
very awkward ones, but it's kind of what it is, and at least it's pushing some boundaries, which I definitely don't mind. So like overall, if if this is something up your alley, I'd say go give it a watch. And there's, yeah, as I mentioned, there's so many amazing, I guess, dramedies out there. Like I mentioned, Louis, Master of None, Atlanta is also a really good one where they're just kind of half an hour chunk shows. There's some comedy elements, but there's also some drama. So I'd say go check out Rami. And the final thing that I did watch is Anna Kendrick is in this, everyone's favorite awkward girl, and that is Love Life. And this is kind of like this kind of, I guess, each episode is almost like a different part of her life, and pretty much part of her love life. Um, and I think the show isn't too bad. I'd pretty much compare it to another show that I reviewed earlier in this year called High Fidelity, which kind of got a female lead, basically in New York City. And it's her kind of being like, oh yeah, discovering who she is. So then each episode is kind of focused on a different guy. So then there's kind of the one guy, like
Oh, this is it like that? High Fidelity is the dating show, right? The one that you were saying, like
yeah,
it was
where
like a record store or
she's a record
something.
store, and she kind of does her own thing on
Wait,
the record
wait,
store.
wait. She's the record store, or
No,
I thought
she
no.
owns the
Okay.
record. She's not the record store.
I'm just messing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is it a very so it's like a romantic comedy show? Is it a show or a movie?
It is a show. It's got I
Show.
think
Okay.
about 10 episodes. And it shows each episode is basically a different boyfriend. So
Okay.
like, yeah, for obviously like the first one's kind of like her first boyfriend, and that didn't work out. The second one was kind of like a random hookup type of guy, and kind of the third one is like some guy that like is like on the opposite end where she becomes like less attracted to him. So there's all I think it does a really good job of at least covering nearly all aspects of, I guess, kind of dating when it comes to like, okay, you know, this is your first love, this is some random hookup person that that you don't ever want to speak in once again, you know, the person that you date during the mid period or something like that. So it has all these kind of like good and unique ideas of like what love is, and I guess dealing with them. um and as I mentioned before, it does follow like throughout her whole life. Obviously Anna Kendrick doesn't really age, so it's a little bit weird. But it does show all these different things where it's like, this is her 2 years from now and 3 years from now. So I like that kind of perspective of having like it's like basically it is kind of like a long movie, and it kind of gives this, if they're going to do like a season 2, it'd be really cool to have a secondary character, because you know her story is kind of complete by the end of this season. And I think it's, as I mentioned, pretty digestible, kind of like comedy, also dating things, because it's not only that, but you know she's dealing with you know, her housemate, who's one of her best friends, who is, you know, obviously the stereotype of, you know, the girl who doesn't want to settle down. But then, you know, but the main character, Anna Kendrick, wants to settle down. So then she feels alienated and isolated because she doesn't want to party every single week. So you kind of have that general drama, and then you have stuff of like, you know, does this person want kids? Do they not want kids? You know, and all these types of things, what you'd go through in dating. Which I think is not too bad of a show. And you know, I you know what? I don't mind Anna Kendrick. She's okay. She just, yeah. Like I know about you, but like, yeah, I think she does an okay in a lot of stuff. I think the only thing that she's really in it is like what, Pitch Perfect, yeah.
I mean, don't people just generally like Anna Kendrick?
I don't know.
Like,
She doesn't get that. She
speaking?
doesn't get that attention that others, I guess, female celebrities do. But like, I think she keeps that thing going.
I mean, should she? Like, I just know that she's like good looking, and she's in certain movies. I know she's in that Trolls World Tour. She's
Oh
in
yeah,
that
good old
show.
Trolls.
She's the voice. I think she does is the voice for a lot of things, but it could also just be my kind of like me just thinking that she does voices for things. But Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah,
Scott
yep.
Pilgrim.
She was
Twilight Saga. Ooh. In Eclipse. Twilight Eclipse. And then also
no
Twilight
one
Saga,
talks about that.
Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 1. She was in that, so didn't make it for Part 2, clearly.
Or maybe she died. I don't know.
Yeah,
Who knows?
know. Yeah, I don't.
But
Mr. Right, Pitch Perfect 2,
basically
Trolls.
a lot of Pitch Perfect stuff. Yeah,
and a lot of Trolls.
And a lot of Trolls. But yeah, essentially, yeah, I think the series is kind of worth a watch if you're into something that's a little bit more. I guess we don't really get romance stuff anymore when it comes to like TV shows and movies. Not as much. I think it's because it really is played down to death, unless you have like a really interesting concept.
I mean, I'm sure. Okay, no. There's plenty of romantic comedy TV series. It's just usually it's not aimed at a male demographic. That's the difference. I guess what got you interested in this particular show would be my question.
I think what it is it takes it kind of as a third person approach. I think one of the main ones is there's actually a narrator in the show, and I think that was a pretty interesting approach where, you know, it gives you like these kind of things at the start or middle or the end of the kind of episode where they're just like, you know, like, did you know that 50% of marriages end by this point, or whatever it is, or like, when you're at this point in life, you know, you're acting and to look for some like this or that in life. So I feel like that kind of has a different approach. It kind of has almost like like voyeuristic approach to the show, rather than kind
also,
of
just as a side note, it has been renewed for a second season. So.
Well, there we go. Well, that's the thing. They could continue, like, as I mentioned, it could continue on a season 2, but it's really cool if they got like another character. Maybe like they swap it and it's a guy and it's his kind of version. I think that would work really well.
Also, it's a HBO Max show, so it makes sense why there's at least some kind of focus on promotion of this show, because HBO Max kind of needs things and stuff for people to come and watch. Like watch this exclusive show on HBO Max. So maybe this is the show that, you know, as you said, like it's aimed towards, like, you know, people who are interested in I guess like romantic comedies, I guess.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, you know, is New Girl a romantic comedy, or is that just like a comedy, or is that just a sitcom?
It's basically a sitcom, but with like romantic elements, because I think majority of that was about romance stuff.
Yeah, because that's also another thing I need to go watch because apparently it has like a crossover with Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or rather, when I mean crossover, it's like I think the main character Peralta is in an episode as himself in an episode of New Girl, so that just means I gotta watch it when the
Extended
time comes.
universes for TV shows and sitcoms.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, it makes sense because I think New Girl
it was a
was
Fox show.
syndicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Fox show, so there you go. That makes a lot of sense why there's like a lot of crossover with certain shows. That's really cool. I really like when they do stuff like that. I think it's really rare. Like again, like you said, like unless it's like same universe or same network, it's generally not the case.
It's like, why on earth would you do that? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, anyways, to wrap up kind of Love Life, I think it's kind of worth a watch. I think it gets a different perspective, and it's not really like trashy romance stuff. It's got a little bit more, I guess, heart to it, and it shows different, I guess, aspects of it, and it's not too like, I guess, out there per se, because I think there's a lot of, I guess, content out there where it's like, it could be 13 Reasons Why esque, where it's like very kind of gruesome, or not gruesome, but like it's more vulgar, kind of more out there, and this is kind of like a little bit more comedic / lighter approach. So it's a really good, I guess, really easy watch. So yeah, I would recommend Love Life. I wouldn't say it's the best thing, but hey, it's pretty good, entertaining content. But yeah, that's gonna be us for this week. Remember, you can always listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Libsyn, and we stream on our YouTube channel, Marketing Movies. So until next time, it looks like Henry Cavill wants to keep on playing Superman, and that's fine by me. So until next time, see ya.